Via 57 West is a one-of-a-kind apartment building. It's owned and maintained by the Durst Corporation. Douglas Durst decided against building a condo tower back in 2010 because of the poor physical occupancy rate that had become a reality in New York around that time. Back then, condos were primarily being bought by foreign entities as assets, and as a result of only a few people actually using the building as a primary residence, the commercial spaces on the ground floors were failing. Rental apartments in Manhattan had also become quite scarce, so the rental concept proposed by Durst provided an obvious solution. When the 709 apartments at Via 57 West first became available for rent in 2015, the price ranged from as low as $569 a month for a studio unit to $843 a month for a three-bedroom unit. Very cheap living for Manhattan, that's for sure. Douglas Durst, he first met architect Bjork Ingels in the early 2000s. He was visiting Copenhagen with his wife, Suzanne, who's a native of Denmark. And now we fast forward to the spring of 2010, and Durst commissions Bjork to bring a new residential typology to a plot of land just off the West Side Highway in Manhattan. Durst's one request was that it wouldn't block the view of the tower behind it, which was also a Durst property and one of Douglas's private residences. Bjork and his team ran a series of computer-generated models to design a building that maximized the view of the tower behind it. So you can see here in this example, this is the tower that Durst owned originally, and you can see how they designed the building to fill maximum usage of that plot of land while also leaving as many views possible remaining for that tower behind it. And here's the view they were trying to preserve. And because of the building shape and all of the metal panels that would make up its facade, cleanability was vital to the owner and the design team. Stainless steel was an obvious choice for sustainability, since Durst would go on to own this building long term, but they had concerns about the stainless steel facade appearing dirty over time. And this is probably why. This is the Saccone Mobile building in New York City. It was built in 1956 using deep embossed panels made from stainless steel with a number 4 finish. This is a picture of it being cleaned in 1997. Cleaning was mostly done with cotton cloth, soap, and water. The nature of the abraded number 4 finish acted as a trap for dirt and contaminants, and although after many years it was easily cleaned off, the use of a microtexture finish back in 1956 would have created a surface environment that would have easily shed those contaminants away naturally as opposed to trapping them. So finally, after a long vetting process, they selected InvariMatte microtexture because of its low glare and naturally cleaning properties. Cleanability is all about surface tension. Water, much like dirt, does not like low-energy surfaces like InvariMatte, making them less likely to retain dirt particles and thus easier to clean, since anything that does settle on the surface is not bound in any way and can easily be released. You can see here in this example, this bead of water on the InvariMatte fits very nicely. It looks a lot like a bubble of water that's sitting on a freshly waxed car. Not the case with the number 4 satin. In the next slide, we'll explain a little bit of why that is. In this illustration, you can see the number 4 finish has grosser irregularities and provides varying angles to help increase the wetting and thus trap more dirt as a result. The microtexture illustrated above is much smoother. It does not break the surface tension of the water, never letting the water wet the surface of the microtexture, so dirt will shed more easily. So a little bit better example, you can see now how this bubble of water is allowed to sit on top of the surface, and here the gross irregularities are causing penetration into the surface tension of the water, allowing it to wet the surface, bringing with it dirt and contaminants that are now be trapped. Now that a finish was selected, we began shipping precision laser cut sheets of Type 316 InvariMatte enclosed to begin assembling the facade modules. No 2 sheets were the same, and much attention was given to coordinating accurate packing lists to assist the assembly process over at Enclose. The modules were fabricated off-site in Richmond, Virginia, from a complex arrangement of aluminum extrusions, brackets, clips, thermal insulation, waterproofing, and finally the InvariMatte exterior surface, which was essentially a precisely cut flat piece of InvariMatte that was draped over a curved form. Each facade module was matched to a curved steel support frame, which was pre-installed onto the building prior to delivery of the facade module. As you can see in this picture here, these were basically brought in from a third-party vendor, built to spec. They would then test those specs in Richmond, Virginia. Anything that was out of spec would then be corrected using a special jig and a laser to get it as close to spec as possible prior to installing in New York City. Here you can see the steel support frames being mounted to the building's concrete core. Panels were then lifted into place with a special lifting jig that angled the panel to match its location on the curved facade. This was done to try to eliminate as much of the human element as possible, risking injury or damage to the panel. They already kind of came in at the angle of the facade, then it was just simply aligning the bolts, the holes up for the bolts. These panels were installed in layers over the facade and were fastened to the building structure from within the building. These modules created both the facade as well as the opening for the balconies of the apartments within. This view gives you a better idea of how it all comes together. And then this is a great look inside the courtyard. The idea of the residential typology that Douglas Durst was looking to bring over was this concept of community within a community. In this building, you have a movie theater, restaurants, bars, fitness centers, basketball courts. You have residences within the courtyard looking over at other residences. So you bring in this sense of community within the greater community of New York City. And that was what their entire design intent was. And you can also see New York really likes to work with natural metals. And this picture of the building topping off shows a lot of the reason why. You really get to see that natural metallic reflectance that you just can't replicate with paint. And then you can see here that natural metallic reflectance illuminating the environment around it. It's one of my favorite pictures of the building.